from the Energy Boutique with your energy and ascension forecast for Sunday, December 15th to Saturday, December 21st. Okay, so last week we kicked off the week with the first quarter moon in Pisces energy, which all of in itself would have been a pretty spectacular event because, of course, in our inner realm of thoughts and emotions, we were opening ourselves up to new ideas, to new paths, to new quests, to new adventures, especially honoring this new version of self. But of course, that first quarter moon in Pisces energy that popped off on the 8th, that was the 5th energy shift of that particular weekend. That's how we wrapped that particular weekend up. It was all over the place, hella crazy, hella chaotic. And of course, we spent this past week kind of sifting through different options, different emotions, different ideas. We had plenty of solar flares popping off to really kind of kick off all of the ascension symptoms that we discussed in last week's forecast. And we're going to be ending this last week off with the beginning point of the energy carrying us into next week, which of course is the full moon in Gemini, followed by Mercury going direct. So let's talk about it. The full moon in Gemini, of course, is a full illumination of hidden information and details that we weren't privy to up until this particular point in time to help us feel a little bit more informed than we've been feeling. We have a lot of options, a lot of opportunities to actually be sorting through, to be processing, to be weighing the pros and cons about. But we've been hella confused about it because, of course, Mercury, who rules over the Gemini energy, who rules over this full moon in Gemini, Mercury's been retrograde. Mercury is going to be going direct just hours after this full moon in Gemini peaks, which means that we are going to be gaining huge perspectives on where it is that we need to move away from certain situations and circumstances. Side note, mostly moving away from the path in which that old version of self had initiated over a year ago, and where it is now that the new version of self has new wants, needs, and desires, values, different situations and circumstances that we're not getting by pushing ourselves continuously forward on this path that we're no longer resonating with. So that in itself is going to be a mind F. Again, Gemini energy is all about the mental plane. And then with Mercury going direct, of course, we're going to be in the post-retrograde shadow period until the beginning of the new year. So although we're going to be gaining clarity, although we're going to be seeing things very differently, although there's going to be new insights to help us feel informed enough to make a decision, to really kind of commit to a new path, a new direction, we're going to want to resist doing that. Because again, until this post-retrograde shadow period clears, we're still in a state of delusion and confusion. Whatever it is that we commit ourselves to, whatever it is that we align with under this particular chaotic energy, we're going to be second guessing and backpedaling upon once we enter into the new year. So cautionary note, resist the temptation, the impulse, the urgency to rush through decisions, to make commitments, to align with a different path, a different direction. Let me also remind you that this week we are building towards the winter solstice. And of course, on the 21st, the sun is going to be moving into Capricorn season. That's going to initiate the solstice energy on, both hemispheres of the world. One is going into winter, the other one's going into summer. Regardless, solstice energy is a reset, karmically speaking. And just to remind you, the closer that we get to these pivotal karmic shift points, which happen, Aries season with the spring equinox, in Cancer season with the summer solstice, Libra season with the fall equinox, and in Capricorn season with the winter solstice, those are all karmic resets for the collective. They're cardinal energies. All the cardinal energies are a choice point, are a, let's call it crossroads point, where we're initiating a new path in a new direction. So collectively speaking, Capricorn season is a time for us to move inward. It's a time of reflection, revision. It's a time of elimination. Again, kind of hibernating, reflecting over the year in which we just had, coming up with improvements and adjustments that could be made in order to better the year that we're about to move into. And although many of you are probably thinking, oh, 2025, that's the year that she's talking about. Nope, not really. the astrological year begins in Aries season. So Capricorn season, Aquarius season, Pisces season. This is all about the endings and closures, making the adjustments needed to the life, to the path, to the direction in which we've been walking in order to lighten the load for us to start fresh and start new. For those of you saying, oh my goodness, I don't want to wait until Aries season in order to jump into something new. You don't have to. You have your own personal chart that is going to indicate the best time for you to launch something new. So, there are lots of loops. There's lots of cycles going on. When we're aligning with the astrological wheel, from Aries season being the starting point and Pisces season being the ending point, that is the collective's energy. And then when you kind of go down smaller, it's based off of your zodiac sign. You have a season and a cycle that operates the highs, the lows, the everything in between due to your zodiac sign. And then to take it one level further, you have your personal chart that is kind of independent of the collective's energy and your zodiac sign soul contract that indicates for you when is the best time to jump, when is the best time to sit back, when is the best time to push for things, and when is the best time to sit back and let the universe show you what needs to flow to you in order for you to be building and creating something new. So with that being said, we're all in different chapters. Yes, collectively speaking, we're all moving into the ending part of this particular chapter that popped off for us in Libra season. We're all collectively moving into Capricorn season, into this solstice energy, into this karmic reset, collectively speaking. So with that being said, we are going to feel a rush of energy here this week. And we're going to be feeding off of that full moon in Gemini that, again, has a huge magnification of our mental plane, of our thoughts, of our ideas, of the truth that we need to be speaking, first of all, to ourselves, because we've been avoiding kind of getting real, raw, and vulnerable with ourselves. And when Mercury goes direct, we're going to have to reframe and restructure a whole lot, not only within ourselves, not only within our personal relationships, but with the long-term goals, visions, and dreams that we now want to pursue. And when we move into the solstice energy, we move into Capricorn season. That's what Capricorn season is all about. That's the manifesting sign of the zodiac. That's when we focus on our long-term goals, visions, and dreams. That's when we get down to the nitty-gritty of what needs to be done in order to eliminate the structures, the foundations, the aspects of this old realm that we're no longer resonating with in order to free up, clear the space, clean the slate for us to be building towards something new. So the urgency that we're all kind of feeling right now is really not real, meaning there is this acceleration of energy. There is this urgency that we're feeling to figure everything out, to choose to decide, but we don't want to do that under this particular influence. What we need to do is to get heart aligned, stay true to what our heart and soul wants from us, wants us to do, wants us to pursue, and get rid of, and not overnight, not, snap of the fingers and see everything change, but start eliminating, removing, releasing the things that are keeping us stuck in this present moment, in the here and now. So this week is going to be kind of magnified in the headspace. We are going to see that acceleration in time. We'll talk about that when we get going here, because when we move into that solstice energy, the energy is going to feel like we hit a brick wall. It's an earth energy. It is a cardinal earth energy at that. And sometimes we have to hit a brick wall in order for us to reevaluate how we even ran into this wall to begin with. Sometimes instead of banging your head against the wall, we need to willingly just lean up against the wall and say, okay, let me just take this break. Let me reassess, reanalyze how it is that I even got here and where it is that I would like to go from here without the urgency. Because again, we're not going to be seeing things clearly until the beginning of 2025. We're not going to be kind of encouraged to take action and make moves upon the ideas in which we're going to feel confident in until Mars comes out of his retrograde, which again is early 2025. We have a lot going on. And may I also just remind you that we are in a season and a cycle of closing doors, of wrapping things up. We're in a closure cycle right now because we have pretty much all of the heavy hitting planets preparing to move into new signs in 2025. And yes, there is a 2025 energy overview coming at you here towards the end of the month. And if you're on my Patreon, there's going to be a more in-depth type of walk through the year as well. We have a lot going on, and this is the, let's call it shake, rattle, and roll that we need right now in order to understand where it is that we have to become a little bit more conscious with our intentions, with our actions, with our focus, with our ideas, because again, we've just been on autopilot, pushing the narrative, pushing the goal, pushing the path, pushing the direction that the old version of self had initiated about a year and a half ago. So now that this new version of self is online, we're like, whoa, okay, are we going to continue to bust our ass to pursue goals, visions, and dreams that we don't even care about anymore? Or are we going to pivot and actually stand in our power, stand in alignment, and start working towards a goal, a vision, a dream that our heart and soul are excited to do, are excited to pursue? So a little bit of a mini rant. That should be an indicator of where it is that we're going here in this particular session. But before I start ranting and raving and talking about the ascension symptoms that we can expect to pop off this week, I just need to cover a couple of things. First of all, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for being here. I want to thank you for liking, for sharing, for commenting. If you're on YouTube, I want to thank you for dropping beautiful emoji sections or emojis in the comment section below. Here we go with the marble mouth again. Again, Mercury's still retrograde, so communication has been a little bit challenging. I don't know about y'all, but it has been for me. I just want to thank all of you tuning in from whatever platform you're actually on at this point. Just a reminder, I'm not abandoning YouTube, but I'm also not putting my blood, sweat, and tears in YouTube any longer. I've had a huge chunk of my community here on YouTube jump over to other platforms, meaning Patreon. Thank you all so much for the love and support over there. And on iTunes, on Spotify, please enjoy your ad-free rants and raves. It's a very nice thing. However, I did have a couple of people reach out to illuminate to me that maybe it's not YouTube messing with me at all. Maybe it's not that people aren't uninterested in what it is that I have to say. Maybe it's the fact that YouTube just kills it with the ads and people are tired of the ads. And for those of you that aren't paying for YouTube Premium and skipping all of those ads, it can be a little bit of a bummer to be getting, on a good rant and then have those ads pop up and kind of ruin it. And with that being said, I totally agree. Unfortunately, as a creator on YouTube, we have to push those ads in order to make any kind of money off of YouTube. But also, I'm not making very much on YouTube, so why make the people suffer? So a huge group of people have abandoned YouTube for Spotify, for iTunes, for my Patreon. And for that, I am forever grateful. However, I've also had people ask me, okay, so you're giving us these ad-free, sessions now. How can we support the channel? So for those of you that want to show some love to myself, to the channel, to support what I'm doing here, please jump over to my website. There's a donate button that I've installed up in the corner. $1 goes a long way. Thank you so much. I do not want to have to ask for money. That's why I was, kind of down with YouTube pushing the ads. However, everything is changing here in this media landscape. And so for those of you that are enjoying the ad-free content, but still want to show your love, want to show your support, that's one way to do it. I thank you so much for that. Now, let me also just say, we are still in December, meaning December's energy guide is still very, very needed, especially coming into this full moon energy, especially coming into Mercury stationing direct. Please, please, if you haven't already, download that December energy guide, do the work for these events, reflect back to when Mercury first went retrograde, do the comparison, see where it is that new ideas have popped off, see where it is that old ideas have essentially died. Those particular resources were definitely created in order to help you navigate the energies. And of course, those energy guides are very specific to your zodiac sign because, again, yes, collectively, we're all going through a chapter, but then on a smaller scale, you have a soul contract according to the group of people that are the same zodiac sign as you. That's why I created them individually for the zodiac signs, because we're all in very different chapters when we come out of the collective energy and we look at our zodiac signs specifically. And then, like I also previously mentioned, you can take it one step further and actually look at your own individual chart to understand the highs, the lows, the everything in between. So with that being said, Again, we're moving into a full moon in Gemini. If you do not have the new and improved moon guide in front of you, because this is a manifesting guide, I feel like we do enough shadow work in, our day-to-day lives. Most of those moon guides that I've been doing for the last 15 years were about the shadow work. I don't know about y'all, but I'm ready to bring the creator abilities online, and that means manifesting. So although there is still some shadow work that we touch upon in the monthly energy guides, the moon guides are now about what we want to build, what we want to create, what we want to manifest, what we want to bring to life. And of course, this full moon in Gemini is part of the new moon in Sagittarius cycle that we're still very much in until we have the end of the month take place. That's when we're going to move into the new moon in Capricorn cycle, which is going to be an amazing time for us to set our intentions, not only for the long-term goal, visions, and dreams that we want to manifest, but what we actually want to experience in 2025. There's going to be a special episode about that new moon in Capricorn coming at you towards the end of this month, because I think it's an ideal time for us to get our shit together, for us to get kind of focused on what we want to build and create, not only in 2025, but in the years to come as well. So get that guide ahead of you as well. Thank you so much to those of you that have jumped over to Patreon. Again, you can still get 50% off of your first month membership up until the 21st of December. And also on the 21st of December, my booking calendar is going to go public. For those of you that are already on Patreon, my VIPs always get access to my booking calendar before it goes public, which means that y'all can expect that particular item to be dropped here early in the week. And again, we are all building towards the solstice energy. So it could feel really crazy, really chaotic, like there's so much information, like you're so overwhelmed. Again, that's the full moon in Gemini. I don't want to add to that. However, there is a lot of goalposts that I've promised to my VIPs that I am trying to make here this week. And so if you are someone that has been very patiently awaiting me launching my 2025 calendar, my VIPs are going to have access to that early this week. And again, we'll go public on the 21st. Okay, homework out of the way. Let's talk about these Ascension symptoms. First of all, if you're feeling cray-cray, if you're having a little bit of a mentee bee, congratulations, you are aligned with the energies. How could anyone feel good, feel sane, feel grounded and anchored, feel absolutely clear in their mind with all of these energies popping off here this week? Of course, a lot of the mental confusion and delusion, the cray-cray energy that we are sitting in affecting our headspace is definitely, thank you, Mr. Mercury, for being retrograde. We can thank him for that. But with this full moon in Gemini popping off, and may I also remind you, Jupiter, who magnifies everything, is being aspected in a conjunction by this moon in Gemini, building towards this full moon in Gemini here on Saturday. So Jupiter is going to overwhelm us with information, overwhelm us with options, overwhelm us with the crazy ass narratives that pop up in our mental plane. He's going to make everything a little bit extra, a little bit dramatic. He's just going to make us feel like our heads are freaking going to explode. Thank you so much for that. We love it. So much fun. But if you're wondering why you feel like torn or split between different options, different opportunities, different lifestyles, different versions of self, you have the full moon in Gemini to thank for that. Gemini energy is represented by the twins. And the twins, one twin is very much stuck in the ego realm, very much connected to the lower level of our intellect, very dependent on what we can bring in as far as information, proof, receipts, evidence go from the present moment, from the here and now, in order for us to kind of, I'm going to say, build upon what is currently existing in our present moment in the here and now. But again, what we're looking at in our here and now is the remnants of the old version of self and the old world that old version of self wanted to do, wanted to pursue. This new version of self that is just kind of, new on the scene, fresh online, if you will, we're not so sure that this is the path that we should be walking. And so the other part of the twin is very connected in intuition, very connected to our higher self, very connected to pushing the boundaries of our mental plane, of our thoughts, of our dialogue, our inner narrative, our ideas on what could be, right? And that is a part of self that is very exciting, but also very scary because we don't know what awaits us in this foreign path, in this uncharted waters, in this unbeaten path. The ego programming that, again, is very connected to the matrix, which is basically, and again, everybody thinks that the matrix is like a physical thing. It's not. It's the programming of fear, doubt, and insecurity that keeps you stagnant, keeps you paralyzed in your present moment. The actual matrix is built out of programming that keeps you in a state of paralysis so that you do not grow, you do not evolve. That particular part of our brain function is trying to justify why we should continue on this path, even though everything looks foreign, even though it doesn't feel like a resonant match for us, even though it's not exciting, doesn't trigger any kind of passion for us. The ego part of self wants us to continue to pursue the path that the old version of self began about 1.5 years, maybe even 2 years ago for some of you, depending on the placements in your chart. And so this is why the division is very much felt within ourselves. Now, it's no joke. We've been seeing the division of the collective, so that shouldn't be shocking. But the division within oneself right now is kind of a major deal because, again, we're feeling this impulsivity. We're feeling this urgency for us to figure everything out yesterday when, realistically speaking, there is no deadline. There is no timeline. That's just, again, a false delusion that our ego programming puts upon us in order to rush us into making decisions that are not of our highest interest, not of our highest potential, not even stemming out of our heart and soul space. And again, when you feel urgency, that means that you think that you're on a timeline. And if you think that you're on a timeline, then you're, again, under the influence of the matrix because time is merely an illusion. That's a man-made concept in order to create a linear, let's call it divide, a linear timeline to track progress. I'm doing air quotes in case you can't, feel me telepathically. Air quotes as far as like goals go. Everything is happening simultaneously. Okay, I know. And you're going to say, well, I don't know. I got to be at work at 9 o'clock. And if I'm not there at 9 o'clock, then, I'm probably going to get fired. So yeah, time does exist in this physical realm, in this physical reality. Yes. But nobody is saying, hey, you need to figure your whole life out before 9 a.m. or guess what? You're going to die. Okay. Nobody's saying that. So remove the urgency. Okay, you can take as much or as little quote unquote time as you would like in order to get in alignment with your higher self, with your true authentic power. Because if you're not in alignment with your higher self, if you're not standing in your power, then you have no business making any kind of life-altering decisions until you're grounded, until you're empowered, and until you're operating from your heart space. If you're still operating from your ego space, I hate to tell you, you're in for a very bumpy ride in 2025. We are in the year of 8 currently. 2024 has been about you bossing up, having the power and control over your mental plane, over your emotions. And if your emotions and your thoughts are having control over you, then again, you are in for a very rude awakening coming into 2025. There is no urgency. You're exactly where it is that you need to be. Of course, you have options and opportunities kind of dangling in your face right now, but nobody is pressurizing you to figure everything out overnight. Nobody is forcing you to decide. Nobody wants you to make life-altering decisions without being in alignment to your higher self first and foremost. Okay, so the split, if you will, the division is due to this Gemini energy. Now, when Mercury goes direct, which again, hours after the full moon in Gemini pops off, Mercury is going to go direct. He essentially is waking up from being drugged for the past 3 weeks. Okay, so when you're under the influence of whatever drugs or substances or alcohol, whichever it is that you get off on, when you're under that influence, life is different. You don't see things clearly. You're living in a delusional state. You're living in an unconscious state, if you will. And just as the day after, it takes some time to come back to reality. It takes some time to get up to speed. It takes time to feel like your normal self again. And that is what the post retrograde shadow period does for us, is it gives us time to kind of wake up, to get our shit together, to evaluate what has happened in the last 3 weeks. Why am I remembering bits and pieces? Did that actually happen? Was it a dream? Is this an intuitive download? Why do I feel like I'm missing something? Okay, it takes that long in order for us to kind of, tick all the boxes, get in alignment, and get up the snuff again. So we have to consider the fact that what we think is a good idea right now may not be a good idea come the first week of January. What we feel called to do, called to pursue right now, we may have no resonance with at the beginning of January. And again, this is why I say to you, try not to make any decisions. Try not to commit yourself to anything. Try not to make life-altering choice points for yourself under this influence, because you're going to be backpedaling and kicking your ass come the beginning of 2025. We don't want that for you. Life is hard enough. Let's stop complicating it, right? Now, let me also just say that this week is an interesting week because of not only the full moon in Gemini, not only the split, personalities that we're exploring, the split options and opportunities that we're trying to kind of, explore as well. But we are in alignment this week with approaching the galactic sun, which sits at 27 degrees of Sagittarius. And so, right now, as I come to you here live Friday evening, we're at 22 degrees, which is a magical, divinely scripted number all in itself. And if you remember, Mercury went retrograde at this 22nd degree. And so he's at a 6 degree now. We're going to have to retrace our steps from 6 degrees, 22 degrees before he's going to be up to snuff. And again, that's going to be like us moving into January. When we align with the galactic sun, so the galactic sun, the concept there is that it's the, let's call it higher life force energy that rules over the structure of our planet and the inner workings of our planet, if you will. It's basically our spiritual sun. And so we're going to be receiving huge amount of downloads here this week that, doesn't matter if the solar flares are still popping off, which I suspect that they will because we're approaching the solstice. So it would just be insanity that the, Schumann resonance would just drop off, especially seeing as, since we jumped into a new timeline, November 6th, it has been back to back, clearing, releasing energy shifts, and then anchoring in and integrating energies. That's why it's been very potent here in Sagittarius season. I kind of laugh at the people. Again, I'm about to take it on a little bit of a detour here. I kind of laugh at all the people out on the social media platforms that, claim that they are, in alignment with the energies and that they're channelers and they're all this and all that. I think every single one of them has said that we've jumped timelines pretty much every day. And realistically speaking, timeline jumps, timeline shifts don't happen that frequently. There's one major event that you could definitely feel, and that was November 6th. And then all of the different adjustments, all of the different changes, all the different energy blasts that are making us feel like we're in new foreign territory or new environments each and every single day. That is the adjustment period of the old realm collapsing, the old timelines collapsing, and therefore removing a lot of energies, a lot of thoughts, a lot of emotion, a lot of memories from those particular timelines that we can't go back to, that we can't revisit. And so every other day I scroll through my, social media platforms and I hear all of these people saying, oh, we jumped another timeline. Oh, we're in a new timeline. No, we're not. No, I'm sorry, we're not. And for those of you that asked me why I didn't address, and let me just say also this. My original OGs don't ask me these questions. It's new people that are coming into the community that are finding my materials that are asking these questions, because my original OGs know better. They know I don't believe in portals. Okay. So for those of you that have asked why I didn't post about the 1212 portal, why I didn't speak about it in my daily forecast for 1212, it's because it wasn't a portal. Okay. We're technically in the 10th month, not in the 12th. So if we want to play fantasy and we want to play fake calendar, maybe 12/12 happens somewheres in another timeline in another dimension. But I'm coming to you live here on Friday the 13th, which has much more magical divine energy than yesterday's quote unquote 12/12 could ever have. The reason why I don't believe in those particular portals is because there's no actual alignment. And again, I know from my original OGs, y'all are tired of hearing me explain this, but alignments are when, the planetary aspects in the cosmos are in direct alignment with the earth in order for us to receive the, let's call it electromagnetism that particular energetic body gives off. If there was another planet in the way, or there wasn't a direct connection that we could draw a line from Earth to whatever planet it is that we're talking about, if there's any type of blockage there, that's not a portal. The only time that portals happen is when there's an alignment of the planetary bodies for us to receive the energy that particular planet gives off. So I'm bringing it full circle here. Our galactic sun, which is our spiritual sun that sits at 27 degrees in Sagittarius, we are in a direct alignment with throughout the whole course of this week. We're at 22 degrees now, so we're within a 5-degree orb, and we will continue to be in alignment with this spiritual sun, giving us downloads for our higher consciousness, for our higher evolvement, until we move through that solstice gateway. And let me also just remind you that the significance of that solstice gateway is kind of, I'm going to say, regurgitated in all different belief systems, because just as the biblical nature decide that, Jesus, the Son of God, got crucified on the cross and died for our sins and was born on December 25th, astrologically speaking, which I'm an astrotheologist, I believe that a lot of our biblical text has been based off of the astrological concepts that, again, predate biblical nature, period. But when the sun moves into Capricorn season, it is the lowest that it could ever be. And when you take the longitude and latitude, and again, if you draw that line, it would make a cross, the sun stays at that particular cross, crucified, stays at that point for 3 days of darkness. That's where that whole 3 days of darkness comes from, is the sun does not move. It enters into Capricorn energy. It triggers the solstice. It stays on that longitude latitude line in the sky for 3 days. And it does not begin to move again, or quote unquote, be born again, until the 25th of December. So for those of you that have been with me for a long time, you already know this. For those of you on my Patreon that listen to me rant about all of these events in a biblical nature and in an astrotheological nature, again, sorry with the marble mouth, you already know this. However, this is why it's significant. We're about to move into the 3 days of darkness that we move into every freaking year around this time. That is why, and again, may I also remind you, Saturn, who rules over this matrix, who rules over this earth plane, who gives us the restrictions, the limitations, the structure for us to be living upon in the time-space continuum here on this earth plane, Saturn is in his rulership when we move into Capricorn season. The sun and Saturn are basically mortal enemies, right? The sun is in its weakest point moving into Capricorn season. It gets hung up on, Saturn literally holds it up against this crucifixion point of longitude and latitude and holds it there. That's why many people move into a depth of darkness in Capricorn season. That's why there is depression around this point in time. That's why, because of the energy harvesting going on at this particular point in the calendar, again, look into Saturnalia. I have a whole multiple podcasts on my Patreon about Saturnalia at this particular juncture. It's an energy harvesting time. Thus why the biblical nature has overlaid all of their quote unquote holidays with all of these events, because it's all the same shit. We're feeding the same beast. We're feeding the same monster. Please do not come for me if you are still kind of, on that side of the Christian belief system. Please don't come for me. Please just educate yourself. There's a lot going on, okay, where all of that biblical text meets astrology. There's all kinds of interconnections there. Anyways, I digress. The point that I'm getting at is that we're already kind of confused and deluded in our mental plane. Thank you, full moon in Gemini and Mercury retrograde for that. We're overwhelmed with information. Thank you, Jupiter, for that. We are low on physical energy with no F's to give, with no passion, with no desire, with no pep in our step. Thank you, Mars retrograde, for that. And we're moving into a karmic reset, right? So the karmic reset is super important because this is going to give us the crossroads. This is going to give us the choice point to abandon the path that the old version of self has built and kind of gently nudge us into the path that the new version of self needs us to pursue. And so at the end of the day, we're going to be moving into a difficult spiritual time, a difficult mental time, a difficult physical time. And the reset needs us to focus on the positives. Doesn't matter what's going on in your life. Doesn't matter the disappointments that you're facing. Doesn't matter the challenges that you're facing. You have to have a positive mindset, understanding that, again, the higher self that has created this particular, let's call it earthly path for you in order to push you into your power, needs you to constantly remind yourself that you're exactly where it is that you need to be, good, bad, or otherwise, doesn't matter. This was the plan that was going to push you into your power, and that there's no time, there's no urgency other than the urgencies in which you're placing upon yourself. So with the time speeding up, with the holiday season, with the craziness, with the chaos, with all of the retrograde planets, with all of the crossroad points, no wonder we're all over the place, right? So the restlessness, the frustration, the anger, the disappointment, it's all coming full circle. It's all needed in order to push you, A, into the version of self that you were meant to embody and embrace here in this lifetime. B, push you onto the path that you wouldn't have chosen for yourself unless, of course, you were pressurized out of the world, out of the path in which you've been walking in order to explore past options, opportunities that you wouldn't otherwise explored unless you had that kick in your butt. And then, I don't even know what letter I'm on, maybe C, we have to have a hope, a dream for the future that is realistic in nature. Because when you have hopes and dreams that are outside of the realm of possibility, all you're doing is setting yourself up for disappointment. And we don't want that, especially going through the solstice energy, especially opening up this new karmic chapter. We don't want to be in that situation, in that circumstance. So there's going to be a lot of changing energies this week. Again, starting with the full moon, and then Mercury, and then the alignment with our galactic sun, and then that solstice gateway. And we are going to be all over the place, not knowing where to go, not knowing what to do. And again, just remind yourself that you have to build a happy place within you. You have to find peace and contentment in your inner realm so that it doesn't matter what's going on in your outer realm. You can always find that safety and security within yourself. So with that being said, let's talk about some physical symptoms that we could expect. So yes, the head pressure, going to continue. The confusion, the delusion, the dizziness, going to continue. I'm going to say that the dry nose, it feels dry in our sinuses, but yet we still have a leaky faucet. There's still snots coming out of our nose. There's still not good things happening in our headspace. Now, the dryness is going to happen in our throats as well. Just think about, first of all, I don't think that the mouth film is going to be existing. I don't think that the fuzzy sweaters are going to be a thing. I think that the majority of those particular mouth issues were because Mercury was retrograde and we were in Sagittarius energy, and that's a lot of fire. And when you hold that fire in your mouth, certain things happen. You have that acid reflux that I think is going to dissipate this week, as long as we can stay away from the tasty, sugary treats that create that shit show of an acid situation in our guts to begin with. I feel like we are going to be speaking a lot of truth. It's going to come at an interesting time because I don't know about y'all, but I am absolutely dreading this holiday season, having to sit down with the, individuals in my family that are still repeating the same old narratives and still stuck in their same old molds. And the holiday season is a testy time for most people, especially, you think you're spiritual, you think you're awakened, and then you spend 2 hours with your family and you absolutely lose your shit and you get humbled in a way that, you can't get humbled otherwise. May I also remind you going into this holiday season that your family is able to trigger you, push your buttons, because they're the ones that installed those buttons. They're the ones that created those buttons. They know exactly how to push them because they created them. And this is a testing time. And especially with all the energies coming at us. Again, let me also remind you, we're being encouraged this season to take a step back, to be a little bit more quiet within ourselves and with our social activities. Because again, this is not the energy to be out giving the beast in which we're trying to deconstruct and destroy all of the energy in which it wants to create. This is why the season is as busy as it is, as crazy and chaotic as it is, as fake and as shallow as it is, because it's an energy harvesting time. So the dryness that we're feeling is because of this fire energy. We're still in Sag season. We're going to be in alignment with this galactic sun. It's like a spiritual sunburn, if you will. And from the inside out, we're going to be running hot. Now, that's going to be a very interesting contradiction because typically speaking, our physical bodies are running cold, right? You may get a chill in your bones that you just can't seem to warm up from, that you can't seem to shake. And at the end of the day, this is an attempt to bring our spiritual selves and our physical selves back into alignment. So again, just a reminder, Scorpio season is where the change of the soul space needed to happen, needed to evolve, needed to transform. Sag season is the exploration of how we are going to express that soul-like form through this physical meat suit. Capricorn energy is where we anchor the spiritual body back into the physical body and we align. We basically, smush those pieces back into merging points and we operate as a sense of wholeness. And so we're in the thick of it right now. We're still flying high. The Phoenix is all, scatterbrained, moving from one part of the sky over to the other, so to speak. We are going to be, the whole, stuff the genie back into the bottle. That's going to be the vibe moving into Capricorn season. There's like this magnetic pull that happens in our physical body, that, cardinal earth energy of Capricorn anchors us into the physical form. And we have to bring our expanded now soul space, because that's what we do in Sag energy, is we make everything bigger. We expand upon the change, the transformation that took place in Scorpio season. We have to shove the genie back in the bottle. And sometimes that doesn't feel good. And so, there's this rigidity in our movements. Our bodies are heavier than normal, especially in the lower extremities. Sag energy rules over the thighs. We're getting a lot of tremors, a lot of Charlie horses, a lot of leg cramps. We store fear in our kneecaps. We have growing pains in our shins. We get cold feet because we're attempting to take action in a new path, in a new direction that we're not feeling so sure or confident about. And so there's a lot of the lower extremities, there's a lot of discomfort there. There's a lot of rigidity. We're feeling kind of stunted at this particular juncture, a little bit chaotic in our inner realm, and our physical body is just not up to keeping up with the rapid changes going on in our inner realm. So I feel like, for the most part, a lot of these energies in our bodies this week are going to be feeling the weight, the heaviness, the groundedness of the physical body, while our inner realm tries to get in alignment to be stuffed back into the physical body, stuffed back into the vessel. And so it's going to feel a little bit crazy. It's going to feel a little bit chaotic. And we just need to do the best that we can to stay in a happy place. Thus why it's so important to have a happy place created within you, so that when the external realm gets cray-cray, when it gets, all overwhelming and you don't know what to do and you don't know what's going on, you can find that happy place to kind of reset and realign and rest and recover in your inner realm. So with that being said, I feel like our skin is going to be drying out. I feel like there is going to be a coldness to our skin because, again, the body is very cold, very heavy, very rooted. Our soul space, our spirit is kind of bouncing all around, hot and moving all over the place. And the ascension symptoms, the aches, the pains that actually creep up in the physical form is where our energy is needed, because those are energetic blockages. When we're trying to, stuff the expanded soul space back into the physical form, the energy needs to run very freely through the meridian channels of our bodies. And where there's a blockage due to the emotional trauma stored in our cellular memory, that's where the aches and pains are going to manifest. So lower back issues, sciatica, hips, clicking in the bones, I don't know. There's just going to be all kinds of, let's call it discomfort, trying to get the physical body to move throughout the day and do what we got to do, while also taming the beast of our mental plane and taming the beast of our ever-changing emotional landscape. Again, there's going to be a lot of insight, a lot of information thrown at us that's going to kind of, A, throw a wrench in our plans, but also B, show us where things weren't meant to be in the first place. And the more you can kind of come up to accepting that when things don't work in your favor, when things aren't working out the way that you would hope, that that path wasn't for you, the quicker you can process it, the quicker you can move on. Again, we want to hold the highest potential of the best outcome available to us in any given situation and circumstance, especially as we're moving through that solstice gateway. So guys, I think that's all that I need to cover here for this week. I am going to again encourage you to download the energy guide for December, to do the full moon and Mercury direct chapter in that workbook, and also download the manifesting guide. I think it's time for us to flex our creator abilities, and there's no better way to do that than to get in alignment with those moon energies. So I thank you so much for tuning in. I send you so much love, and we'll talk to you soon.